This is Ben, this is Rylo, and without further ado, here are all the pros and cons I can think of the Rylo 360 camera. The first thing Rylo has going for it is the uber simple design. There's hardly any buttons on this thing. You just hold down the main button to turn it on, and it vibrates, a little hello vibration. It only has two buttons, one there and one there. This one changes modes from photo to video, and this one records. And you know what? That's it. There's no other buttons and no other settings. Talk about taking simplicity to the extreme. So we press the button and we see that bright red LED when we are recording video. Now let's take a photo. Micro USB port there. Here we have a battery latch. Micro SD goes in right next to the battery. Bam! You'll notice there was no tripod thread on the actual camera, which is why you will need this. This is a mini selfie stick. At first I thought this would be a nuisance, but I've actually grown to really like this selfie stick. You can't see it in your photos. And at the end, there we have our tripod mount. It does make it kind of awkward attaching this to longer selfie sticks, but it works and I haven't had any issues so far. So overall, in terms of design, it's super simple. However, that's kind of refreshing. I like the really simple design. Anyone can use this camera. Is it too simple? Yes. With this simple design comes no other options for changing modes, changing frame rates, resolutions, color profiles, or anything. You're stuck on one set of settings for photo and one set of settings for video, and that's it. You can change a little bit later on, but otherwise you can't change anything within the camera. So it's one apiece. Next, let's look at resolution. For photos, it's 6000 by 3000, which is about average. And for videos, it's 3840 by 2160. Oh, did you catch that? 2160. Normal 360 videos are 3840 by 1920, which fits with the 2:1 equirectangular aspect ratio. With this, it's a 16:9 aspect ratio, which does mean more overall resolution. However, it will add more steps to your post-production workflow. Every time you bring this 4K footage into Premiere or whichever editor you use, you're going to have to resize it to the 2:1 aspect ratio. So why would they do this? Well, from what I hear from the Garmin Verb, which has the same resolution for 4K, is the more pixels you have vertically, when you compress that down to the actual 2:1 aspect ratio that it should be, you're going to get slightly more clarity on the vertical plane than you would have gotten otherwise. It's not well explained at all with either of these 360 cameras. However, technically, I guess you're going to get slightly sharper resolution, and that's really debatable. So I'm not going to put this as a pro or a con. This is overall average resolution for both photo and video. Next is the amazing feature that we've all been waiting for, and that's the Rylo's awesome stabilization. This stabilization is next level. It's like nothing I've ever seen before. When I put it to the test against 5 of its closest competitors, it wiped the floor with all of them. Even the GoPro Fusion, it beat significantly, and this stabilization is crazy good. I have no idea how they do it, but you can shake this camera around like crazy and it'll be almost dead still with almost no motion blur, shake, or any kind of distortion. This is unquestionably its best feature, and it's leading the industry right now with its amazing 6-axis stabilization. This is a feature almost worth buying this camera alone for, and I've shot some stunning footage utilizing this amazing stabilization, and it just looks so amazing. It's such a pleasure to look at. It's a pleasure to shoot. Stabilization this good is a key ingredient to creating social media friendly videos that will get eyes on your work really fast. This is gimbal-like stabilization. It's like I have a gimbal underneath this camera. Because it's this good, this also means it's an amazing hyperlapse camera, which means a moving time lapse. And it really is hard to go wrong with this camera. All you need to do is point, shoot, and walk, and you have an amazing piece of cinema, almost like you have a crane or a dolly in your hand. And to me, this gives Rylo a cinematic look, which I'm still yet to see from a 360 camera. Since this camera came out, all the other companies took notice and they significantly improved their stabilization. They really saw what 6-axis stabilization could do, and they're all trying to replicate that with their cameras. So while I'd say this is unique to the Rylo right now, in a few months' time, this could be something that all of them have. You can tell this is still a work in progress camera because even with that amazing stabilization, I've noticed at the beginning and end of clips, there's a slight movement, almost like the camera is moving into place to stabilize, then at the end it moves out of place. While this isn't an issue for shorter clips, because you're probably going to use the middle section of it anyway, the camera breaks up really long clips into shorter sections. So if you're shooting 30 or 40 minutes, it'll break it up into 5 or 6 separate clips. This means it's going to adjust at the beginning and end of each of these clips, creating a shaky effect in the middle. I've got no doubt they're going to fix this, but at the moment, this is an issue. Next, we have stitching, and I've found the stitching to be really good in the vast majority of situations. You'd think with the thicker camera body that stitching would be an issue, because there is such a distance between the two lenses. Well, I haven't really found this to be the case. When looking back at my footage, I've noticed both near and far have stitched perfectly fine. People walked past the Rylo as I've been doing hyperlapses and they've not been cut off. It hasn't been perfect. In some photos I've seen a very obvious seam line, but overall I'd say it's totally passable for stitching. Here's what Rylo footage looks like. Overall, it does a decent job at exposing the image, at portraying colors, highlights, shadows, contrast. However, it also seems to be covered in a creamy browny kind of tinge. They've improved this since the camera was first released. However, this does cause the footage to look desaturated. After a bit of color correction in Premiere, I was able to fix most of this. It's looking a lot more vibrant now. There are still shades of that browny, creamy color on the right hand side of this video. However, as a whole, I see no problem. This is totally usable. When I add in a warp stabilizer in Premiere, just for fun, we have a nice fun little shot here. I really like what I'm seeing. My biggest issue with this shot is when you watch it in full screen, you're going to notice that loss of resolution and the colors do look kind of blotchy. Unfortunately, most 360 cameras are going to do this when you reframe, so it's probably best to use Rylo for social media only. Here's Rylo at night, and yeah, it's not great at all, is it? Not only is it grainy, but you can see there's a strobing effect around that street light, and this footage is not looking nice. This is one of the many reasons why limiting manual controls of a camera is a bad idea, because if you were able to control ISO and shutter speed and aperture, you'd be able to get something that looks a lot better. And the aperture is f2.8, which is the worst out of any 360 camera I can think of. So just don't take this thing out at night. This brings me to its potentially biggest flaw, and that is there's no wireless connection to your phone. You have to connect it by cable. Every time you want to download footage, you have to plug in this cable, put it into your iPhone, and download like that. While this will be faster in actually downloading the footage, it's a pain because it means you're always going to have the cable with you, which if you're a forgetful person like me is not going to happen. This also means there's no live preview when you're shooting, so you're just going to have to guess what it looks like and hope it does a good job. And look, in the vast majority of cases, it's done an excellent job. However, it's good just having peace of mind and knowing that your shot looks okay. And because of this connection issue, it makes your photos a lot harder to take. There's only one option for self-timer, and that's 1 second. So you have 1 second to go like this, which doesn't really leave you time to go anywhere other than arm's length away from your camera. By the way, with some of these smaller issues I'm having, I'm sure they probably will fix them. They do seem like obvious things to fix. I like to take cameras at face value. Whatever's there at the time they release the camera is what you should expect the camera to have forever. Hopefully they fix a lot of these issues, but I wouldn't count on it. You never know what the companies are going to do, and sometimes it could take them 6 months to fix something basic like a self-timer. With that said, I have taken some decent photos with it. Like this one here I shot with the Rylo. That looks quite good. It looks almost identical to all the other photos I took when I compared this with the 7 other cameras, so it can do a good job. However, like I mentioned, you can only really have the camera in your hand at this point. This brings me to my next set of issues. There isn't any desktop software for this camera yet, which means you have to do all of your stitching on your phone. Because this camera is iPhone only right now, and there should be an Android version in the next few months, it means you're going to have one of the latest versions of iPhone to use it, and you'll have to rely on your phone to do the vast majority of post-production. This includes downloading your footage and stitching, and if you think about it, if you shoot 64 gigabytes of content on this and you download to your phone, you're going to need 64 gig free, and 64 gigabytes is a lot to spare on my phone. I have a 256 gigabyte iPhone 10 and it's already pretty full, but I've noticed every time I've had to download my Rylo footage, I've had to delete a shit ton of my other videos and photos. And what makes things even more difficult is after you download to the app, you also have to save to your camera roll, which means you'll need double the amount of space in order to get your footage to your computer eventually. So you'll need about 128 gigabytes free, unless you delete clips as you go and do it clip by clip, which can be quite annoying. That cons list is getting pretty long. Well, there is one awesome thing that I'm going to add to the pros list, and that is the app. The Rylo app is one of the best 360 camera apps I've ever used. It's such a pleasure to use. You can tell they value simplicity, and it's so easy to pick up and use. If an idiot like me can use it, then anyone can use it. Now check this out. Say I want to follow my face. All I do is hold down my face and go follow this. So it'll go ahead and motion track the entire clip, keeping me in the dead center of frame the whole time. And as I move around, it stays locked onto my face. I found this to be probably the best reframing app out there for any 360 camera. It makes it so easy, and you can use it in either vertical or horizontal modes. I would almost call this Insta360 Studio for mobile because you can create multiple points within that longer clip and transition from A to B to C within your 360 environment. You guys know I love my mobile workflow, and I think Rylo are really leading the way in keeping everything on your phone in terms of 360 video production. They're not there quite yet. There's still a lot you can't do, but this is pretty incredible given I've just done complex 360 camera moves using only a phone. Look at it, it's beautiful, so silky smooth. Oh yes, I could go to sleep to that. Here you can create a second window if you want to show two viewpoints at once. You can change the speed. If you do want to do a hyperlapse, it'll speed it up and you can export straight from your phone. You can adjust the colors and hopefully get rid of that poo brown and make it more of a light shade of peanut butter brown. Another cool thing is you can level the horizon. So if you shot it and it looks slightly out of whack, you can level it like that. Exporting your photos and videos is super easy as well. I really like what they're doing here. You can export as a 360 photo, you can export as a cropped view. So if you want to punch in and make that your photo, or if you want to turn into a tiny planet, you can export however you want. Something else I really like is if you go to more, you can now airdrop your photo to your computer or your iPad or anywhere else you want. There's details like this that make the workflow faster, even though the workflow isn't the best in other areas. I would say this redeems it a little bit. Oh, and by the way, don't use this app for tiny planets. It creates the pancake effect where it squeezes your head so you look like you're a human pancake. I sent Rylo a message on Instagram and told them to fix this, so hopefully they will, but for now, you'll want to export to your camera roll and edit in a proper editor like Theta Plus or Roll World. So here are the pros and cons as they stand, and there's slightly more cons than pros, although the pros are really good, and I would say they probably are worth buying the camera for. Something I feel like I need to bring up is something that Detective Michael from 360 Rumors discovered, and that is that Rylo are naughty boys and girls. Because before the camera was released at all to the public, they went onto Amazon and they bought fake reviews. So their listing started with about 18 fake reviews, all 5 stars, saying how amazing the camera is, and the profiles ended up being fake. So while that doesn't have anything to do with the camera in my hand, it does make me a little bit skeptical of Rylo. And look, they are a startup company, so I guess they need all the help they can get, even if it's with fake Amazon reviews. I'm sure they've learned their lesson. The detective has told them off for the naughty boys and girls they are. So I don't think they'll do that again in the future, but it's something worth mentioning. So in conclusion, this is an awesome camera, and in my opinion, all of these pros are worth buying this camera because at the moment it stabilizes better than any camera and it reframes in the app better than any camera. And those are two things, if you're into extreme sports and reframing your extreme sports, those two things alone will win this camera over for you. For me, someone that couldn't ride a motorbike to save his life, I'm probably not going to use it for these purposes. However, I know this camera for me is going to be a B-roll machine. The hyperlapses are just so amazing and hypnotic. I know they're going to make for awesome B-roll segments in between bigger segments of some of my videos. Who doesn't want beautiful cinematography? And the reframed hyperlapses alone are going to get you those awesome B-roll shots. If you're a blogger, this is going to be an awesome camera. If you're into sports, this will be a great camera too. Outside of hyperlapses and reframing, I probably wouldn't buy this camera, to be honest. It's only for those things. And for me, those actually make it worthwhile because I'm active on YouTube and Facebook and I make videos every single day. So if you don't see potential in these two features, then the Rylo is the wrong camera for you. As a former filmmaker and cinematographer, being able to get those amazing hyperlapse shots make it worthwhile for me. If I could have done this back in film school, I wouldn't have needed a Red Epic or a Red One. I could have used a Rylo and gotten amazing cinematic shots. I mean, look, who isn't going to choose a Red camera? But if you can do it for $500 and get a really awesome cinematic shot, then it's something worth considering. If you like your quirky cinematography, then I think the Rylo is going to be a really good option. And if you like sticking to your phone, and yes, I do mean iPhone only right now, then this will also be an awesome camera. Is it worth $500? Yes, I would pay $500 for these awesome features alone, and I did. I know I'm going to be using this in my future vlogs, my future videos, and I know this is going to give my videos that next level production value. Will this be my go-to camera? Hell no. There's another camera that's going to be my go-to camera, and I'm not naming any names. Be sure to join the Rylo Facebook group for all the latest discussion about the camera, as well as some hella cool samples you guys are gonna love. I'll put a link in the description to where you can find the Rylo on Amazon. And now it's time to do the ultimate stabilization test. Until next time, this has been Ben from Life in 360. Don't forget to follow me on Instagram. My handle is @BenClaremont. We're on Facebook as well. Just type in Life in 360 into the search bar and you will find our Life in 360 Facebook page. And if you're on YouTube, Don't forget to hit that subscribe button for more awesome weekly 360 videos. Till next time, it's been Ben, and I will see you in the next video.